last offseason, I decided to do something very crazy for a Miami Dolphins football fan. I decided to side with the Buffalo Bills and their fans and do a podcast trying to support and prove why Josh Allen deserved generational talent talk. Not something I wanted to do. Bills made me very unhappy in the 90s. I'm now a football guy where I love my team, but I kind of look at everything just from an objective standpoint as an art, but still it's not easy. But when I looked at the analytics, start looking at the stats and then underlining stats and trying to look at the analytics side of it to see if that 2020 season was, as many said, a fluke, or as others said, just a springboard for something greater to come. When I was looking at those stats and then I went back and checked out the film, I'm a film first guy. There was nothing else I could do unless be dishonest with myself and say this kid had just all-world talent and greater things were going to come. Going into 2021 season, I had some concerns. It was an up and down season. When all was said and done, it was a very good season, but not great. But that Kansas City game, the detractors, they couldn't help but at least say this kid is very good, because it was an amazing game the way he carried the team, should have had the victory against the premier quarterback in the league, Mahomes, premier young quarterback. So even the detractors at this stage are saying, well, he's very good, but still don't think maybe he's great. So when you look at the season of 2021, like I said, it was a good season. But I want to dig in, again, like I did last offseason, this offseason, dig into the analytics to show the context behind the season, to say that this season, the 2021 season, was as good as the 2020 season, maybe even a little bit better. Now, I also want to say this. Sometimes when you're intellectually honest, good things happen. When I did that podcast, I had a guy called Tommy reach out to me a year ago from the Mafia Sports Report and say, I like your work. We started chatting it up, and now he's become my friend. Even has me on the show once in a while. Has this monkey on the show to do live stuff. He's trying to teach me how to do the live stuff. He's patient with me. Mafia Sports Report is a great channel for Bills fans, for football fans. He's a great guy. Anyway, I just want to give that shout out because that was one of the results of doing that podcast. So let me get right into it. The base stats, very prolific thrower, 6th in attempts, 409. Completions, 4th, 646. Completion percentage, 24th, 63.3. That's what some detractors will hold on to. Yards, 8th, 4,407. TDs, 36th, 7th. And ints, 3rd most with 15, another point that detractors will hold on to. And what was surprising to me, the game-winning drives was 0. Fourth quarter comebacks as well. Anyway, that was just a weird note. I wouldn't put too much into it, just situational. But you look at it, good stats. You want to hold on to the lower percentage of throwing the football, completion percentage, and then the ints. So now I want to dig into the deeper stats to give the context and to support why this was such a great season and great things are coming for this kid. All right, so air yards is what I want to dig into. Here's the graphic. Air yards kind of helps you get an idea of style. So intended air yards, number 1 was Brady at 57.91. Number 2 was Allen at 53.04. Caught air yards, number 1 is Brady at 27.62. Number 3 is Allen at 2.664. And here's the last one. Yards after the catch, yak. Number 1 was Mahomes with 26.99. Number 2 was Brady with 2.554. And Allen was all the way down there. Number 17 was 17.43. Now, it was an aggressive offense, both in intention with intended air yards and caught air yards. It was the actualization. And you can see it was up there with these big quarterbacks. But what really stands out is the yards after the catch. Now, Mahomes, it's not to knock Mahomes. Brady, it's not to knock Brady. But Mahomes had nearly 950 more yards his receivers earned for him, and Brady about 800. You tack that on to the yards that Allen had during the 2021 season, you're talking about 5,200 or 5,300 and 5,400. It's a big swing. Now, some of that is ball placement. That helps the receiver get the yak yards, but there's no way that accounts for all of it. Some of it was just talent difference or the way the things evolved, the offense itself. So I want to get into another series of stats here. Interference and accuracy. Okay, it's a bunch of stats. It's about 6 stats. Here's the graphic. Batted balls, Herbert was number 1 with 17. Allen, number 2, with 16. As reference, Brady was number 17 with 8. Rodgers and Mahomes behind him with 7. Drops. Herbert was number 1 with 38. Allen, number 2 with 35. And you put Brady and Mahomes in that company because they had 4 and 5 on that chart, on the ranking. Then throwaways. Allen was number 1 with 32. Mahomes, number 2 with 32. Tied. Bad throws. Brady was number 1 with 127. He was ranked 14th in percentage at 18. Mahomes was ranked number 3 in bad throws with 118. He was ranked 6th in percentage with 18.8. Allen was number 6 in bad throws with 107, but he was 16th with 17.04%. On target. Joe Burrow was number 1 with 82.6, given the pressure that he had. That's amazing. Allen was number 24 at 75.4. And you might say, oh, that's really bad. Brady was number 23 at 75 something. So when you look at these stats now, first it was the yak was totally out. Yak was out of whack. Then you look at these and you're seeing that Allen was 16th in bad throw percentage, miles ahead of Mahomes and ahead of Brady as throwing the ball better accurately, which would help say that the yak wasn't reduced because of bad throwing, that it was situationally and other things, maybe limited talent on the receiver or whatever the case may be. I think some of it had to do with the defenses playing over zone and kind of expecting to pass. But that's just me. But just one piece of that puzzle. And then on target, he was off with 75.4, but Brady was close. Now, I want you to consider Brady and Mahomes. I'm going to do one more sets of stats, and this will be pressure. Now, pressure, depth of the football, all these things makes the throw much harder. Allen was equal with Brady as far as depth of throw, both in intention and actualization. He had far less yak. His balls were batted down more. He had roughly the same drops. Throwaways, he had some more, but I think I'm going to relate that to pressure. And bad throws, Allen was much better than Mahomes and slightly better than Brady as far as being more accurate with the balls that he did through percentage-wise. So the last group of stats I want to get into is, like I said, pressure. And here's the graphic. Now, sacks. Burrow was number 1 at 51. Allen was number 27 at 26. Now, if you just look at that stat, it's going to look like Burrow had tons of pressure and Allen didn't. But the rest of these stats are going to create context for the first 2 groups of stats plus this. And I think it's going to dial home why the season was a very good season and underrated by the surface stats when you look at them. So anyway, here's that graphic. I'll continue with it. Blitz. Dak was blitzed number 1 overall in the NFL 187 times. Allen, number 2 at 182. Now, Brady was number 4 at 176. So 2 things I want to bring up. 1, Allen wasn't being blitzed because he can't read or whatever. Somebody might say that thing. Because Brady was blitzed nearly as much. 2, in 2020, Allen was blitzed the most in the NFL by like 40 blitzes. He was like 200. He was like 240, and the next guy was like 201 or something like that. So it was a vast amount of blitzes. So the defenses decided to scale back their blitzes and do more zones and let the front rush. Now, I got doing deeper stats is why, but That's, I think, an important thing. Okay, back to it. Hurries, Allen was number 1 at 95. A distant 2 was Hurts at 76. 3 was Mahomes, tied at 76. And Brady all the way down the list at number 27 with 22. That is just about 5 times more hurries than Allen. Mahomes was in the same ballpark, but still substantially lower. Now, hits. Ryan was number 1 at 84. Allen, substantially lower at 64, but at number 4. Mahomes, number 7 at 58. Brady, number 23 at 31. Pressure. Allen was number 1 at 185. Number 2 was Ryan at 172. Number 3 was Mahomes at 162. And unbelievably, Brady was number 31 with 17 pressures all season long. Scrambles. Hurts was number 1 with 50. Allen number 2 with 49. Mahomes number 4 at 46. Brady obviously was not even on the list. So, top 2 in the NFL in negative modifiers as far as pressure throwing the football was Allen with blitzed, hurried, and pressure, and he was number 4 in hits. The difference between what Brady, the framework Brady had, and the framework Allen had was light years different. Mahomes was relatively close, but Allen was still substantially worse. So again, far less yak than Brady, Mahomes. I say Brady because he's the pinnacle, and Mahomes because he's the big young gun. Still could talk about Rodgers and Herbert and all this other stuff. And then on top of that, he had all this pressure and still was the 27th least sacked quarterback. When you consider, and this is why I said at the beginning of last year, running the football is critical. And this is why I think they move on from Dable in a way. He found a job, but they're moving to a different style. Similar, they're going to throw the football. I mean, it's a throwing league. But what I'm saying is the balance, the giving the ball to the running backs and being more serious about it being a major part of the game plan week in and week out is going to happen, and it's going to be critical. Critical. I was also doing some research on the RPOs and the play actions and how that related to Allen. Do that all the time because it's a big, big, big study. But in this situation just here, you've got number 2 in blitzes. Teams will not blitz you as much if they fear your run game and fear your pass game. Hurries. Number 1 in hurries. If you're running that football effectively, that's going to help your offensive line out. And that's going to make teams more tired later in the game. It's going to slow down the pass rush and wear them out. Hits. Number 4. If he's not, figure it. He took 64 hits, 26 sacks, all the other jostling, and then 122 runs plus the postseason. The more he's getting hit, the more he's running the football, the more tired he becomes, and it becomes more demanding the process. This will alleviate some of his problems. Pressures, 185. That's a game. That's almost the difference between number 1 and number 2, Allen and Ryan, is almost the same amount of pressure that Brady experienced all season. Is what? 13 between Allen and Ryan, and Brady had 17 all year. Just imagine if Allen had 17 pressures and he was hit 31 times, hurried 22 times, what he'd experience. And Brady had almost the same amount of blitzes as Allen, like almost exactly the same. But Brady's had a phenomenal line, and they were more serious about running the football. Brady, of course, was able to call things up and move the line, and he did a lot of magic too. But it's more than just that. So if you take Allen's passing stats, Allen's running stats, the amount of the lack of yards after the catch, the amount of pressure he experienced, hits, jostling and everything else. And then you consider the batted balls, the drops, number 2 in drops. And then you take all that bunched up, and he is 16th in least bad percentage throws. Given all that, that to me is an epic season. Top stats, completions, attempts, touchdowns, interceptions, all that's not going to tell you this. But when you dig under the radar, under the hood, I should say, and you watch the games, it becomes very, very clear. I know it seems counterintuitive. Run the football more with the running backs and be more balanced is going to make Allen less. It's not. It's going to make him more, a lot more. And I expect him to have a much better season than 2020 on the base stats come this year, this 2022 season. And I expect him on the sub stats and analytics to have a better year than 2021 because he's not going to get this kind of abuse. I don't want to say it. I mean, I don't want Allen in my division. I don't want to celebrate the enemy quarterback. I mean, he's a nice guy. Bills fans are phenomenal to me on his channel. Tommy, who I met, is now my friend. I have another friend I've known since I was like, Pee-wee. He's a Bills fan. But still, my team hasn't won since the flood. I don't want to say this, but it is legit. Does this mean he's going to win the division? Does it mean he's going to win a Super Bowl? No, there's so much stuff between here and there. But this guy, 2020 and 2021 campaigns, when you actually look at them objectively, were phenomenal. There's no way around it. Anyway, this is Curtis saying thanks for staying to the end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Comments mean the most. They really do. You spend time on me, which means a lot. I like to spend time back on you and learn in the process. It's about people, really. This is all about people. Everything's about people. Subscribes and likes help us with the Google overlords and keep my sponsors happy. I want them to be happy, so I can keep doing this. It's been a dream, year and a half now, or a year or so. Getting paid to study football. Want to kind of continue for a little bit longer, so I appreciate that as well. Anyways, Curtis saying thanks. See you soon. Be well. Bookies can earn hundreds to thousands of dollars from booking action with aceperhead.com.